this is like PhD thesis level question. And I wish, some of our very good friends who are, Carol Markowitz does a podcast with us, for example, on the Clan Buck Network. And she's obviously Jewish. And David Efun, a very good friend of mine, he's Orthodox Jewish. He calls in and talks about these issues. So, there are people that could speak. I can't speak from the I perspective on that, right? But I can speak from the observer perspective. And growing up in New York and understanding the political dynamics there. Here's what I would say, and to reiterate what Clay said, it's a fantastic question. Conservative Jews are surprised by really nothing that has happened since October 7th in terms of American politics. They know already. And they tend to be more religious as well in their Judaism. So you'll have a lot more Orthodox Jews, and there's a whole span here, but you'll have a lot more Orthodox Jews who align on social issues, on defense issues, on, government issues with conservatives, Republicans, and the right wing. Liberal Jews who tend to be based on the 65%, I think, of the American Jewish vote tends to go Democrat. And within that, there's a whole span of how liberal are they, right? I mean, how far but the most left-wing Jews tend to be very much non-religious entirely. Like they're Jewish by culture, by tradition, by background, but they're not ideologically practicing Jews. That's one component of it. And they tend to be the most left-wing. So basically there are atheist Jews. There's a lot of them, or completely non-practicing, non-religious Jews who tend to be the most left-wing. And your point about Rashida Tlaib, they will vote for people who are very supportive of Palestinians, for example. I mean, Bernie Sanders is Jewish, and Bernie Sanders is incredibly left-wing and generally very supportive of, say, the Palestinian cause. And, there's a lot of Jewish academics. I studied with some Jewish academics on campus, Clay, who were very critical of Israel. I mean, so this wasn't there's like Norm Finkelstein has written a book called The Holocaust Industry. I mean, there's left-wing Jewish intellectuals who are very critical of Israel and very supportive of Palestinians. But that tends to be, and again, this would be you could write a book on this, you could write a whole PhD thesis on this, or this would be, though, where you see usually the more practicing somebody is in their Judaism, the more conservative they are, and the more left-wing they are, the less they practice their Judaism and other ideologies, socialism, social justice, etc., is what pushes their vote. Does that? I know that's a lot.
I think that makes sense. I also think I would add a couple of other things. One, I think it's tribal. And what I mean by that is they picked a team. And so first let me say, I think there will be some Jewish movement. I do think more Jewish voters will vote Republican based on what they have seen happen in the wake of October 7th. And there's analytical data to support that. For instance, the amount of Jews watching Fox News as this conflagration with Hamas has gone on has skyrocketed. And you'll see, I mean, this is not me just saying it. New York Times write about it. A lot of Jewish people out there said, man, I never would have believed that Fox News was so fair, right? Because MSNBC and CNN have been reflexively opposed to the Jewish perspective. They've been trying to make excuses for Hamas. So I do think there'll be movement. How much movement is the question? If there is not a lot of movement, Buck, my thesis would be two things. One, people are tribal. And if you are 70 years old and you've been a Democrat your entire life, you look to Chuck Schumer and you say, hey, Chuck Schumer is saying the right things, and you're not paying attention to Rashida Tlaib or to Jamal Bowman, left-wing aspects of the Democrat Party. That's one. You sign on with part one there, that there is that cover, basically, like you're a member of the tribe, you're a fan of that team, and you are then going to continue. The Democrat tribe. Yes. And you're going to continue to vote that way. Second part is, I think there's a lot of social pressure, to Buck's point, on if you're not particularly religious and you live, let's say, in Hollywood, or, I went to GW, which at the time was like 50% Jewish. You define yourself by your liberalism in your community. And if you are you're almost a heretic. You're a person who's standing up and saying, actually, you know what? I got this wrong. So it's not only that you might be a member of that, Democrat tribe. It's that you're afraid of alienation from the people who are friends of yours, if you have the willingness to say, hey, I'm changing.
Did you just say heretic?
Yeah.
But in a funky way? I've never heard it that way before.
Is that not the way it's supposed to be pronounced?
I don't know, but that was an interesting one. That was new.
I'll be honest with you. I read way more than I listen. So there are all sorts of words that I know that I read in my head, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing them the right way.
I said credo was credo for the first 35 years of my life. So
I used to say tyranny instead of tyranny. Because again, these are words. So heretic, did I mispronounce that? How would you pronounce it?
Heretic. No.
How did I say it?
Heretic.
That
was a new one. I was saying that was cool.
Yeah, I have no idea if I pronounced that word correctly. But basically, you're turning your back on everybody that has always been on your side before, and it's hard to do. And so those are, if there's not big movement, those would be my two arguments for why we're not going to see it.
Mark my words, there will not be big movement. People will forget about this.
Anything,
and I'll say the war has basically,
positive that can occur, Buck is skeptical that it will occur.
That's
I think that's fair. Is that fair, team? Is that fair? If I'm like, hey, I think there's going to be a positive movement here, Buck's like, it's not going to happen. Everybody's
get off my lawn, play Travis. No, I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think there's going to be any movement in the vote overall.
You think overall the exact same Jewish vote that we saw in 20 we will see in 24, percentage-wise?
Within 5%.
Well,
I would say within 5
5 points would be a huge move to me. Like if you went from 65-35 to 60-40, that could swing the election.
I mean, I said within 5. So,
yeah.
I mean,
so you think under 5 if you had to set.
Under 5.
Yeah.
It'll be an under 5. So if it hits 5, Clay got this prediction right. If it's under 5, I don't think it'll move all that much because I think that people are going to forget, unfortunately, about what has happened and how the Biden administration has responded to. They're such cowards, but that's not a surprise. And yeah, just to the point that the questioner that called in, it's complicated, but it's a little bit like, to be fair, and I can speak to this one. A lot of Catholics vote for the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is a lot of people who think they're good Catholics, and I don't cast any aspersions or hold myself up as a good Catholic or anything like that, but I do know, I mean, I went to a high school where you had to be baptized, confirmed, and practicing, meaning your parish had to confirm you went every Sunday, like you had to be a Catholic who was doing the Catholic stuff. And there was an absolute mandate, a requirement for the school, and we had 4 years of required theology, and it was not a joke class. It wasn't like, pop your headphones in and listen to Metallica. Like, it was basically a church history and doctrine class. And all these Catholics who vote Democrat, I sit there, I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But they've bought into the
Joe
social
Biden is
justice,
one of them.
commie stuff of like, share the wealth or whatever. I'm like, really, share the wealth? What about abortion in the 9th month? What about the trans kid stuff? What about, go to the line and they go, whoa, well, I didn't really think about that much, but a lot of Catholics, I mean, look at Pelosi and Biden.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, the question was, should the Pope give sacrament, right? Wasn't that a discussion about that with Biden before in some of those meetings?
The question right now is the Pope Catholic for a lot of people, but that's a whole other discussion.
Man, that was such an awesome trip to get to go to Vatican City. I'd never been. I went in March. It was really, really cool.